Folks, I'm with my friend Leigh Steinberg, and I've known Leigh since, I think, 1998. Let's take the I think out of my head, because for the viewers who don't know, Leigh helped me first with the Super Bowl, then he helped L.U. Harris on the A's situation just as I was arriving, and we've been friends ever since. But I'm really excited because Leigh, you're back. I just want to say it just like that, is to get that smile from you. But let's talk about first Paxton Lynch, the quarterback, your new client out of Memphis. And first of all, how did it come that you were able to meet Paxton Lynch and he became your client?
David Lynch's father actually called us back in October of 2014 in an effort to try to assemble information, knowing that Paxton was one day going to be someone that would want to play pro football. Little did we know that he would, a year later, be the top-ranked quarterback, prospectively, for the 2016 draft. As you know, our focus in our practice is on role modeling, an athlete retracing his roots to the high school community, collegiate community, setting up a high school scholarship fund, repaying his college scholarship, then setting up a charitable foundation, trying to make a difference in the world. He was really excited about all of that, David the father. And so we spent time with the family, very close family, Father David, Mother Stacy, Brother Evan, who's a pitcher at Stetson, and had a meeting with Paxton this summer for a couple hours, and didn't meet with him again until basically after the season. And it was a mesh of values. And as you know, players picked at the top of the first round have been my specialty over the last 42 years now. I've had the first pick in the first round of the draft in 8 separate years, and franchise quarterbacks have been a particular specialty, all the way from Steve Bartkowski to Steve Young to Warren Moon to Troy Aikman to Ben Roethlisberger. So it was a real fit in that sense. And so yesterday we made it official, and he announced his intention to forego his last year and enter the 2016 draft.
Looking at the video of Paxton, he reminds me personally of Brock Osweiler with Denver Broncos. And what, from your point of view, are his attributes?
Well, first of all, he's 6'7", 245 pounds. So the new mode in the NFL, if you look at the past season, it really was Cam Newton who in many ways was dominant and may win the MVP. Ben Roethlisberger doesn't quite have the running ability, but they're both huge quarterbacks who have the ability to be pinpoint passers, but they can get out of the pocket and, in Ben's case, move and throw on the run. In Cam's case, move, throw on the run, or run and be a multi-purpose threat. They also have the ability on 3rd and 1 to just stretch out over the middle and convert that down. So this is the new mode, and Paxton fits that. He can throw a big league out. He can throw a mid-level out. He's got a touch on the deep ball. He's also a natural leader. His teammates love him. His roommates were at the press conference yesterday. So he's got all that. In today's football, it's so quarterback-centric. Without a franchise quarterback, that's someone that a team can build around for 10 to 12 years, who they win because of rather than with, and who can elevate his level of play in critical situations, especially adversity, to put a team on his back, take them through the playoffs to the Super Bowl. Without that player, it is extremely difficult to be competitive at the highest level. And there are a number of teams looking in this year's draft.
You know what I thought was interesting, too, is that I looked at his videos from 2015 and 2014, and I read I read an article by Bucky Brooks of NFL Network who said that Paxton Lynch wasn't NFL ready, and I read it entirely, and I read it twice, and I thought, that's completely wrong, and I'll say why it's completely wrong. First of all, the offense, this is just me from observation, that Paxton ran in Memphis is very much like much of what the Raiders have done this year under Bill Musgrave, Chip Kelly with the Eagles. Elements of it have come into the offenses of Dallas, at New York, especially Panthers with Cam Newton. I can go on and on and on. So Bucky, I'm just going to say this in video, is completely wrong. And I don't know if he just did that to be mean or what. But I say that because we're getting to this, I call it silly season, Lee. And the silly season is that a person doesn't honestly evaluate a quarterback, but they do so with this hidden bias that then comes out in evaluations that are completely ridiculous. And that was one of them. And I'm saying that. I don't want to get you in trouble. I'm just saying that because...
Look, I don't think any college quarterback's ready for the NFL. The game is so much faster. The defenses are so much more complex. And frankly, the new system does a disservice to them all because of the way the cap's arranged and the fact that rookies get big signing bonuses and big cap numbers if they're picked at the top of the first round. It forces them to play when they're not ready. Mm-hmm. And so we've seen over and over again, even if they come out with a big first year like a Colin Kaepernick or RG3, they can fall back because they're doing it on their arm. It just takes time to adjust so that when you have someone like an Aaron Rodgers who sits and learns on the bench, or Carson Palmer did the same thing, they're ahead because they've had the opportunity to have a more gradual process of integrating into the game.
Hey, you're an expert on this because you've handled arguably more quarterbacks than any other agent, more top quarterbacks. Why is it that it seems to me, and correct me if you think that I'm wrong, that, because it goes to my evaluation of Paxton, that NFL offenses have become more like their college counterparts, and perhaps because of changes in the collective bargaining agreement combined...
No, it's changes in college football. Remember that when you and I were growing up, mm-hmm. A lot of them ran wishbones. They ran what you saw Navy run this year with multiple options. All of a sudden, those offenses went to pro set, and they became mirrors of pro offenses. So they're running the same offense. Now, some of the quarterbacks play under center. Some of them play more out of a shotgun. But the point is that those footballs become a passing game at the college level where large parts of the country used to run.
Yeah, and the other thing I like about Paxton is he has a howitzer for an arm. And it looks like even if he got strong in the weight room, there's a video I found that told me I don't think he needs to work out that much. If I'm not mistaken, he's throwing the football, is it the length of a football field? It's a little clip, like 10 seconds.
I mean, he's got that ability. And so you've got someone with that arm. But what's amazing is that at his size, he can so effortlessly escape the pocket. So we have a long scouting procedure to go through. Virtually all of these players now go, the minute the bowl games are over, they go off to training for about 5 or 6 weeks in a specialized setting. They work with a quarterback coach. He's just on the way this weekend to look at 2 or 3 training facilities and quarterback experts. They work on strength. They go into high nutrition programs. They work on fundamentals and techniques, and then they go off to the scouting combine where they're weighed and measured. They have 20-minute one-on-one sessions with teams where their character and their temperament is tested. They have the ability to go through 5 testing drills, how fast they run a 40, what their vertical leap is like, and then they can throw. And then once the combine is over, they have the ability to do all those same drills. And for a quarterback, the kernel, the essence, the vortex of the whole thing is a 40-minute, roughly, throwing session on their college campus on pro scouting day, it's called, where they make all the basic throws. And aesthetically, what you're looking for is that the ball doesn't ever hit the ground. And done well, it's a thing of beauty. And then it graduates to individual teams being highly focused on who they're going to take. And in the last part of it, a team can have as many as 30 players come visit their facilities, no workouts, and their interest hones and hones and hones. And the key to scouting is having a few teams fall in love with your player and specifically envision him as the player that could take their franchise.
Now, are you going to have Paxton throw at the Combine?
Not sure yet. The downside of it is that the player isn't throwing to his own receivers, so it doesn't look quite as good. The upside is that you have every last director of player personnel, head coach, scout, executive in the front office, and many, many owners there. So if you can do it well, you never have to do it again. However, every top quarterback in years has always thrown on pro scouting days. So that's the key day for throwing. But every player has to show up at the Combine and do the drills and do the physical and do the 20-minute interviews.
I asked because when Jameis Winston threw at the Combine, he did extremely well. He did so well that it became a worldwide Twitter trend, because in this day of social media, you can really blow up. That's the other reason why I asked. So Paxton is also perfect because it seems like he is someone that's interested in community service, and that's a big deal with you, right?
It's really a requirement. And what I'm looking to do in the world is to try to make a positive change. And athletes have this critical role because they can trigger imitative behavior. Take an issue like domestic violence. When I had the heavyweight champion Lennox Lewis say, "Real men don't hit women," it can do more to change the behavioral attitudes towards domestic violence in rebellious adolescents than 1,000 authority figures ever could. So Word Dunn, the former running back with Tampa and Atlanta, has a program we set up called Homes for the Holidays, where we just moved the 145th single mother and her family into the first home they'll ever own by making the down payment and having Home Depot outfitted. So it's
Warwick Dunn?
Work done.
Mm-hmm.
So it's really critical that these athletes retrace their roots. It's also the genesis of second career, because what happens is they start to be seen for their non-athletic skills, and they're able to network, and they meet people that can help them as they go on. So Ward Dunn's now a minority owner of the Atlanta Falcons. John Cherry, who had the Cherry Foundation, then became the owner of the Anheuser-Busch distributorship in Kansas City. He became a minority owner of his team in the Bay Area. People like Steve Young and Brent Jones use the people they met in Silicon Valley. Brent Jones has a multi-billion-dollar hedge fund. So it's looking at an athlete holistically and seeing how to craft a program for them, not just for while they're playing, but for second career.
Now, I'm going to transition here because we could talk about Paxton quite a bit, but you have a new client as well. Actually, it's two legs of a triplets. That's how I like to think of it. But Paxton, to finish, he threw for 3,778 yards, 28 touchdowns, and just 4 interceptions this year. That's incredible. Congratulations, Leigh. Daniel Lasco, as this old blue will tell you, is one of the best running backs in Cal history. He is also credited with the longest play from scrimmage in Cal history, 92 yards against Colorado, and he is the most prolific active runner. Well, he's about to be deactivated, but active runner at Cal. That's Daniel Lasco. How did Lasco come to be your client? Congratulations.
Thanks.
And I have to say, go Bears.
There you go. And, someone who went to Cal, built his career at the beginning on Cal football, it's especially gratifying. Daniel's a high-character young man, graduated, a couple of weeks ago from Cal. Met his grandfather John Caniglio, who was running their process, shared the different values. There was a values match there. And Daniel is someone who was injured this year, had some nagging injuries. If you look to the season before, he gained 1,100 yards.
Right.
This year, Cal also went to a more rotational system where they kept putting the wide receivers and running backs in and out like modular parts. But he is an every down running back. He has the capacity to break away. He's very fast. He can catch the ball well. He can return and play special teams. He's got so many different aspects to him. And I think you're going to see him in the pros much more like he was in his sophomore and junior year. When he gets a chance to touch the ball, because these players need rhythm. Now, I've represented Ricky Williams and Edgerrin James and Thurman Thomas and Darrell Johnson, a whole series of running backs, and we didn't see the best of Daniel Lasco this year. We saw it the year prior, and I think that's what you're going to see in the pros, and he'll go to Exos and Carlsbad to train.
Now, is he going to be in the combine as well, Daniel? Because I know Cal has a program.
I'm quite sure. He's going to play in the East-West game. He's a senior, so he can play in an all-star game. Those games are heavily scouted. They're really only roughly 4 practices, so they have to treat each practice just like it was a game.
I have to give Daniel this props, too, because he is a high honors student and has really set the example for the kind of student-athlete that we've been trying to promote at Cal, who does well both on the field and off the field in the classroom, and, of course, especially with you out in the community. So that's
well, and really popular with his teammates. He was voted MVP by his teammates. And, with the team, obviously, with a great quarterback and a lot of other players. But
yep.
And he's a very team-oriented player. So I think you can expect things. And look, he comes out of a heritage of, Marshawn Lynch and Justin Forsett. And Cal's had a few running backs.
Yeah, he reminds me in a way of Shane Vereen out of the backfield, when he catches the ball. So, I mean, I don't want to name a team or anything, but I just can see about 5 or 6 teams off the top of my head that would do very well with Daniel Lasco. I really do. Now, congratulations to Daniel. I say again, go Bears. Now, I want to talk about something that's a little painful for me to talk about. I know you've been on it for a long time. And that's getting an NFL team to Los Angeles. Because you and I go back to Michael Ovitz, and he wanted the Hacienda in Carson. And let's talk about the history of that, because I think this is we have a unique opportunity to bring a perspective that people haven't heard before, into this.
So what's happened today is that this is all about brand new stadia. It's about stadia that have large numbers of luxury boxes, premium seating, jumbo scoreboards, naming rights, signage. It's about all the revenue that can come from these stadia. Unfortunately, it's not about fan loyalty. And all the way back to 1992, when I helped Mayor Jordan save the Giants, when you and I worked on Elihu Harris and Save the A's, I was also chairman with Jack Lindquist, head of Disneyland, of Save the Rams. Because I have a fundamental belief that a pro franchise is not a private business in the same sense as your corner drugstore. These owners buy a team, subject to all sorts of regulations, revenue sharing, that are not private business concepts. And they advertise themselves as your San Francisco Giants and your Golden State Warriors, with the implied obligation that you support them in bad times as well as good, because they're a civic institution just like the Golden Gate Bridge or the Bay Bridge. They're part of the structure. So to then move, if there's support, strikes me as fundamentally against the interests of professional sports. So I go all the way back to thinking that San Francisco would have been fine with an expansion team rather than the Giants baseball team, and the Dodgers would have been fine not stealing Brooklyn's team. So I'm a purist on that. But no one's listening to me, so here's what I think is going to happen. I think that St. Louis, with Stan Kroenke, is going to move in 2016 to the Inglewood site. I think they have very powerful owners like Bob Kraft and Jerry Jones who are behind it. I think that will then put pressure on the San Diego Chargers to become the second tenant in that project. I have a certain feeling that will happen in 2016. If it doesn't, I think it happens in 2017. That then leaves the Raiders in the position that if the Carson project is not there, they then have a choice as to what they're going to do. They don't have to do anything, but they're going to want to have a stadium. Do they go to San Antonio? Do they go to St. Louis? So that puts the onus back on Oakland. Now, here's the thing about it. If people in Oakland and the East Bay have an interest in keeping the team, then the time to fight's now. Yeah. Because you have the team. In 1994, I said to Ram fans that we have to fight to keep the Rams, and we had a very viable stadium plan that envisioned something called Sports Town. So it would be a Disneyland of sports rides built contiguous to the football stadium. So you'd have virtual reality, high-tech sports rides, a group of retailers, you'd have some hotels, it'd be a tourist attraction. And when you take that area of Oakland, the problem is it can be dark and cold, and there's not much going on Monday through Friday there. And if you're going to justify the cost of what could be $1 billion to $2 billion project, you've got to have more commercial interest than what are going on right now. So that was our plan. Unfortunately, Orange County went bankrupt. But I said then, if we lost the Rams in Southern California, we would probably lose the Raiders, and it would be years till a team came back. The naysayers said, no, Los Angeles is too big, too much a part of the TV contract, and on and on. Well, that was 1994. It's now going to be 2016. That's 22 years. And in Oakland's case, if they don't fight, they will never get a pro football team back. I happen to think there's a value in having it. I lived in the East Bay for over half of my life. I think there's a value.
Panoramic in Berkeley.
In Berkeley, and the point is, but I spent many long hours. I had Raiders season tickets, and I think there's a value to it because the problem with Oakland has always been identity.
I want to get
it sits in the shadow of San Francisco. That was the same problem Orange County had, sitting in the shadow of Los Angeles. When you look at Oakland, it's got some gorgeous areas, a lot of assets, but it's got an identity problem. And having that team helps them deal with the identity problem. I'm not saying that's the very first priority instead of schools and roads and all sorts of civic improvements. But if you can find a profit potential in it that makes sense otherwise, it makes sense to do.
See, what's happened with us, Lee, is that, for example, Mark Davis actually asked me to put together a plan, which I did do by spreadsheet. I even got Piper Jaffray involved as investment bankers. But where we're at is that the mayor, who is my god sister, has decided, for reasons that I'm not entirely clear of. I'm clear on some because I'm not comfortable thinking about it, but to cut to the chase, she has handled everything in-house, whereas the other mayors have had task forces. Like, for example, when we had our task force, you were on my task force, we had a broad reach, right?
We had Save the A's, which had businessmen, it had outside people, all sorts of people.
She didn't do that. And Mark Davis said, look, it's not a matter of public money. He said this to me. It's not a matter of public money. I want land. And I said, well, on the other hand, get this. The mayor says, I want to use tax increment financing. Well, I've done tax increment calculations for 3 different redevelopment agencies. You can't do TIF without a private person owning the land. So give it to the Raiders pay the property tax, and it's a done deal, right? I mean, I don't understand how we can change. Am I saying anything that's out of school from your perspective?
So what you need to do, though, is you have to start with the fact that when we did Save the Rams, I had 135 local businessmen on our committee, and we built public support. The first thing that I did for Mayor Jordan on Save the Giants was I hit the airwaves. It was a fait accompli that they were going to leave. Sort of like it's a fait accompli that the Raiders are going to leave. I had to get on every talk radio show, meet with every journalist, and say over and over and over again, we don't have to lose them. There's no reason that the Giants should leave. We can convince the National League it's not in the best interest of baseball to lose them. But we have to show there's a there, that we care, and that there's excitement here. So the first thing is you have to build public support for the fact that that people want this team to stay. That will catalyze the mayor and the other public figures. You've got to get out and get that together, and then get a group of people who are willing to be part of the solution. That will influence Mark Davis. It'll change everything. And the Bay Area is the 5th largest market in the country, so it certainly has enough going on. The team actually is in a resurgence period, playing better than the 49ers, and they've got some young, attractive stars. But it starts with building public support, with getting some prominent spokesmen involved, some of the luminaries in the East Bay and in the Bay Area.
Tom Hanks.
Stepping out and talking. Now, the Raiders are one of the gateway teams in the NFL. That means that because of their heritage, they have more than an ordinary number of people across the country that root for them and follow them. They also have a lot of celebrity followers. Someone has to organize that. When Mayor Jordan called me, everyone had given up on the project, and I had to fly up to the Bay Area and devote a couple months to just working on it. And the irony of it was I grew up a Dodger fan. But I had lived in the Bay Area for years, and I just didn't want to see that happen. So that's the point. You need activists who will design a good PR program, a good program with folks. In the case of the Giants, I had a friend, Larry Baer, who was working for Larry Tisch at CBS. Asked him to come home to get to people who could actually potentially invest in a new team, all the rest of it. So that you just have to get going that way.
Now, I know that mindful of your time because the Rose Bowl is about to start, but one final comment, and this has to do with your Super Bowl party. It's going to be at the Metreon. I'm excited. Super Bowl 50. Talk about your party, Leigh.
So we started the party back in 1985 when the Super Bowl, I think, was last in San Francisco. It was when it was held at Stanford. And it was in my house in Berkeley, that tree house with 4 levels of redwood and glass. And it's grown immensely since then. So
that should be a national landmark, Leigh.
The Super Bowl is a convention of Americana. Big business, big politics, big sports, big entertainment will all be descending on San Francisco and the Bay Area. So we combine all those groups. We have owners, general managers, players, former players. We have political figures. Jared Brown's come to the party, Dianne Feinstein, Barbara Boxer. We have entertainers. We've had Outcast and a variety of NSYNC. We've had movie stars, large numbers of them, and people from business, corporate leaders. And we usually do a charitable theme. We're still working on it, but the year that there was the earthquake in Haiti, we were able to ship a water machine directly to Haiti that purified water because there was a cholera outbreak, and it helped save 140,000 people a day.
That was in Miami, wasn't it?
That was Miami.
Yeah, I was there when we made the announcement. I have the speech, I believe. Yeah. Yeah.
We did live hookups to troops in the field during the Iraq War. We did in New York a live hookup with troops in the field in Afghanistan, Navy SEALs. Governor Napolitano came in when we greened up a party in Phoenix, and we released some endangered hawk into the world. So the party will have the food, the ambience, the motif of being San Francisco, and you'll experience it all. So it's just a wonderful experience. It's a daytime party with without the crowded, noisy, drunken atmosphere of a lot of the parties, and it's my thank you to the whole world of people that support us forever.
And it's a great event, by the way. Hey, are you going to partner with the 50 Fund, because this is going down in history as the most charitable Super Bowl ever, and they've raised, I think, $5 million already. Has anyone talked with the 50 Fund managers about partnering?
Oh, we have to do that.
Well, there it is. Keith Bruce, if you see this, there it is. Hey, so Leigh, your thoughts about the Concussion movie, because you were one of the first to talk about the problems of blows to the head repeatedly when no one was paying attention to this subject.
I had a crisis of conscience back in the late 1980s because I'm representing half the starting quarterbacks. They keep getting hit in the head, and we go to doctors, and no one can tell us how many are too many and when a player should retire. So I held a concussion conference back in the mid-90s with some of the leading neurologists and a lot of our players. And we issued a white paper that had specific recommendations that went to teams, neurologists on the sideline, better investment in helmetry, all sorts of suggestions about ages you should play, no blocking with the head or neck. Not much change. We did it again in 2007 with Warren Moon and the Concussion Institute, and then Bennett Amalu testified about chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and we had neurologists tell us 3 or more is the magic number. After that, you get exponentially higher rates of Alzheimer's, premature senility, ALS, chronic traumatic encephalopathy, and depression. So I called it a ticking time bomb and an undiagnosed health epidemic. It gets worse, because every time an offensive lineman hits a defensive lineman at the inception of every play, it produces a low-level subconcussive event. So an offensive lineman can walk out of pro football with 10,000 subconcussive hits, none of which have been diagnosed, none of which he's aware of, but the aggregate almost certainly does the same thing as 3 knockout blows. 50% of the moms in the country know this and tell their teenage boys, you can play any sport, but not tackle football. It won't kill football. It would just change the socioeconomics. So the same people who box and do UFC play tackle football. So I've tried to be in the forefront of new helmetry, like tape technology that uses coil and compression to redirect the energy force, new diagnostic techniques so you don't send players with subconcussive hits back out to play. Some people think stem cell, hyperbaric oxygen. We've got to urgently move on this. So I met Peter Landsman a couple years ago. He asked me to read the script to Concussion. I did. I gave him some notes and suggestions. It ends up being a little less than some people want in terms of hard hitting, because it's the story of Ben Mullen and not a total screed against concussion. I went to the premiere. I spent some time with Ben Mullen. He's quite a courageous guy. I think it's a step forward, as the death of Junior Seau and Dave Duerson was, as the lawsuit was, in bringing awareness. So I think that it will be a positive in terms of more awareness, more urgency to act.
I got to ask you, I remember in 1979 in a Raiders game, actually it was 1977, excuse me, there was a magazine called Pro. And in that magazine there was an article about the future of football uniforms, particularly the future of football, but uniforms were part of the article. And helmets were supposed to be of a completely different design by the 21st century, but they're basically the same. What happened?
What happened was that there's a generalized denial by the players themselves when it comes to the state of their health. And there's been a denial until recently by football as to the severity of this. So, if we can send a man to Mars, or to the moon, and a space probe to Mars, this is an engineering problem. You stick engineers and design people on. It's a matter of physics and engineering. You've got a blow coming into the head. Is there a way to redirect that energy? And there is. So, like I said, this tape technology design redirects. They've got it up to 46%. They think they can get to 90%. That will be a fundamental change. And remember what's so key about this, Zenny. It's not just a pro football problem. It's a college football, a high school football. It's AYSO soccer. It's hockey. It's field hockey. It's bicycles and motorcycles. It's a societal epidemic in all collision sports and in accidents that needs to be addressed, because we've got millions of people who had these walking around showing the symptoms, not having any idea where they came from. They are not aware that the high school football they played with those concussions are causing them problems now. And that's why having a movie, whether or not it's spent the entire film preaching on the danger of concussion, is important.
What do you think will be 10 years from now?
The risk will either be reduced, or the sociological, socioeconomic change I talked about will occur. You're already seeing a little bit of it. Now, it's not going to happen within the sport. Someone grew up playing Pop Warner, went through high school, college. By the time they're in the pros, they're not suddenly going to do what the linebacker at the 49ers did in big numbers and just walk away. They're so far into the system.
Talking about Chris Borland.
They've accepted a set of norms that you and I would never accept. And they'll look at you, as my clients have, like, you just don't get it. You don't understand how critical this is. The play. Not my long-term health, but this play. So, however, where parents still have the power over their kids at a younger age and redirect them, then you'll start to see a change. We'll still have football. It's the dominating cultural force right now in this country. 45 million people play fantasy football. It's the top-rated television show in this country, not just the top-rated sport. There are weeks where half of the top-rated shows are NFL nighttime football.
That's right.
Not even the best games, but it's a total obsession. So that's not going away tomorrow or anytime soon. But it's so completely integrated into our culture. But that doesn't mean that the average talented athlete has to play it. They can end up in other sports. In the same way, that the reason we don't dominate world soccer is that our best athletes, not any insult to soccer, but our most talented athletes go into pro sports that pay the most money.
You think women will rise to the NFL level? We already have women who are officials, coaches. You see a woman player coming to the NFL within a 10-year time frame?
No. Other than at the kicker position. This is not a matter of sexism. No, it's not a matter of anything other than the build of folks. Mm-hmm. It's it's not a matter of sexual politics that men's bodies were built larger and stronger in certain ways. And remember, we're talking about the absolute pyramid of men's bodies. We're talking about this teeny little percentage. I went to the Memphis game, and they were playing Auburn. And it is college football, and the tackles were 6'6", 340 pounds. The center was 6'4", and he weighed 320. Jeez. I mean, these are monster people.
Jeez. They would blow out a '70s team. That's wild. On that note, Leigh, I know you've got things to do, and again, thank you so very much.
My pleasure, Denny. Anytime.
And I'll see you at your Super Bowl party.
There you go.
Happy New Year.
Thanks.
You got it.